All right, excellent. This is Tarek Tomes again. So I'm super excited to do this interview, and I love being on this side of the proverbial microphone for a change. I actually don't know if I've been on this side for the last 12 months, so I'm really excited to be allowed to ask some questions. It's incredibly important to just highlight the systems and technology that improve the lives of people in our community, and it sounds like this app does exactly that. So let's learn about what it is and why it's so critical for its users. First up, we have State Services for the Blind's Director, Natasha Jerde. Great to have you with us, Natasha, and happy Digital Accessibility Awareness Day.
Thank you, Commissioner Tomes, and it's so great to be here.
All right, so Natasha, tell us a little bit why the app, and most importantly, what problem did it solve?
So first of all, I want to do a little bit of bragging on Minnesota. We were the first in the country to start a radio reading service, and we just celebrated 50th anniversary. So back in 1969, some creative engineers developed a way to broadcast over a closed system using part of the radio signal of Minnesota Public Radio. One of the things that this allowed us to do was read the daily newspapers, something that people with print disabilities didn't really have any access to. But now, with a team of amazing volunteers and broadcasters, we're able to broadcast 24/7, reading the papers as well as books and magazines. About a dozen years ago, we went all digital with our radio signal and our receivers. But we now live in this mobile world, and people aren't sitting at home by a radio like they used to. They want to be able to take their information on the go. Plus, the radio signal was a pretty expensive way to broadcast, and it was no longer fully serving the needs of our customers. So it's some SSB staff, along with an awesome team of developers at MNIT, designed an app for Android and Apple platforms, as well as an Alexa skill. Now our customers can access our programming on their smartphone, on an Amazon speaker, and online through our stream. They can now listen not only at home, but while they're commuting to work, working out in the gym, going on vacation in Europe, or sipping coffee at Caribou.
Wow, that is fantastic, and really what an amazing collaboration between people and organizations. Ensuring that technology matches how people are interacting with today's services is really critical for all of the state solutions. And during this time of an increased reliance, we certainly see that tremendous amount of disparities between access and accessibility and digital solutions still exist. In this instance, it sounds like there really was a need to replace a critical, long-standing infrastructure. I know that on accessibility awareness day, we're all thinking about inclusion and keeping people in the center of the solutions that are provided. How have you addressed unequal access to broadband in remote areas with the new system?
This is definitely something we've given a lot of thought to. I mean, we call ourselves Minnesota's accessible reading source. So we're committed to making sure that everyone who needs this service can use it. We've created the app so that people can use their cell service on their phone if they don't have reliable broadband. And State Services for the Blind is part of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And we are incredibly fortunate to have the Office of Broadband Development within our department. And this office is working to bring reliable high-speed internet to every corner of our state. And for customers in more rural areas that don't yet have that reliable high-speed service, we are working with them to find the right solution. And I do want to note that our radio talking book service has earned praise from people around the country, not just Minnesota, for the quality of the work our volunteers do and for the breadth of our programming. And we're happy that the apps, the Alexa skill, the online stream, it now means our service can reach people across the nation and even the world. And finally, I would like to take just a moment to say that we recently lost a very important person to Radio Talking Book. Sally Anson, who was part of the Ham family of Ham's Brewing, died at the end of April. And more than 50 years ago, members of the Ham family really understood the importance of accessibility, especially accessibility to print. And without their ongoing support, none of this would have been possible. So I just wanted to send out our condolences to Sally's family and our gratitude for the work that she and her family did on behalf of accessibility for all.
Wow. And certainly want to extend those condolences to a family as well as an individual that has made such huge contributions. Thank you so much for the great background, Natasha. Let's do a deeper dive into the technology with SSB's CTO, Dave Andrews. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Commissioner Tomes. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so Natasha talked with us a little bit about why Radio Talking Book is so valuable and about the need to create the solution so quickly. Can you walk us through the decision-making process?
Yes, we several years back we converted all of our infrastructure to digital things and developed a digital receiver, et cetera. And one of the advantages of digital is that we can repurpose our programming in many different ways. And the apps and the Alexa skill are a perfect example of that. We're also able to offer our books through the National Library Service for the blind now, all because we are digital. But I wanted a way in which that was simple, that people could listen to the radio talking book anywhere, anytime, or we have an archive of programs for the past week and be able to listen to that. So, you know, the two basic requirements were it be simple and that it be accessible, that people with different disabilities using assistive technology could use our new services. So I think those are the major points.
Well, that's really impressive. Tell me a little bit about challenges you had in making the Radio Talking Books app accessible.
Well, there were a few. You know, Whoops, I accidentally muted myself. Deed had never done a mobile app before, but they knew they were going to need to. They're working on a big one now for Workforce One. So they said, well, we'll do this with you and we'll be able to learn a lot from it. And I think they did. And I want to thank Mary Philippi and Joanne Radio, who's one of our accessibility coordinators, and Eric Moeller, who was the developer, and we all worked together on this app. We used a Microsoft program called Xamarin, and Xamarin allows you to develop an Apple iOS app and an Android app at the same time, more or less. Like these things always are, it gets more complicated, but you're supposed to be able to use one code base and develop the app. And we learned a lot about that. It, in terms of other challenges, the app had to be accessible, obviously, and there were some pretty subtle things that were going on, and some of them had to be fixed at the Xamarin level. Some of them had to do with the accessibility APIs that the Apple and Google use. Others had to do with the changing landscape. Part of the way through our process, iOS introduced the dark mode, and that was very popular with our users. So even though we hadn't set out to support it because it hadn't really existed, we knew we had to support it. So that took some work, and some other things in terms of changing font sizes and stuff took some work. And it's interesting being on the other side of the table. I'm always the guy yelling for accessibility, and we had a couple very obscure accessibility bugs that, in all honesty, we had to put off to version 2, and there will be a version 2. But it just, we had to get something out at some point. So it's interesting seeing some of the compromises that you sometimes make, because when you're on the other side, you're like, never, no, they got to do this.
That's excellent, and as you are aware of, and certainly any of us that are in this larger technology space, our work is never done, and as the vendor platforms change, we evolve, and I'm such a strong proponent of a concept around minimally viable products and returning value to people that need it, quickly, and not letting great be the enemy of good at times. And so really can empathize and relate to what you just shared in terms of approach. I really think artificial intelligence, chatbots, voice bots, robotic process automation hold such significant opportunity for us, and I see that you have an Alexa skill available, and I think that's incredibly cool. Are you looking to integrate the app with any other AI or future-based technologies?
Well, one of the things we're going to do is develop I believe it's called a Google Home service. So it would be for the Google smart speakers. It would be like the Alexa skill on Amazon devices. We have budget for version 2 of the apps and the Alexa skill. So we haven't finally decided what all the features will be. And at this point, I don't know that they'll involve artificial intelligence, but we know this isn't a one-time thing that we're done with. So we plan on moving this forward and adding features that make sense. We still want to keep these things simple because that's their strength.
That's terrific. Dave and Natasha, thank you so much for sharing your story. The state's work on accessibility is a commitment to Minnesotans that all voices, abilities, and needs will be included in the development of our systems. It's important that we set the tone for usability and accessibility, and I really think this project really highlights how we can move forward. And it's also an example of the importance of all of us collectively using the means that we have to amplify wonderful stories like that, where others can see themselves in this app in some way, shape, or form, and learn from the experiences and what you have contributed. I think this is really exciting. Thank you very much.